Hello, I'm Luminousz. Welcome to my channel, Sexual Energy Transference and Making Love Consciously. I want to thank everyone for your time and tuning in to this video. Please mind the description box below for resources, references, and the disclaimer, which is there's going to be some information that I'm going to be sharing today that some may find disturbing. So please be well advised. For my current subscribers, thank you so much for being my stars. You absolutely keep me motivated to keep my channel active. If this is your first time visiting, welcome and thank you for visiting. At the end of the video, please go ahead, like, share, and or subscribe. Sexual energy transference and making love consciously. First point. Make sure I have my marker. Okay, there we go. Narcissists, or those who have a cluster B personality, usually are looking for any signs of brokenness in those that they target for sources of supply. Where's my water? There we go. Once the narcissist detects any signs of weaknesses such as trauma, depression, low self-esteem, and an eagerness to please, it is at that time that he or she will work to break down and violate all personal boundaries. One way that the cluster B personality can violate his or her sexual partner's personal boundaries is by intentionally choosing to masturbate during a sexual encounter. Their partners more than likely will feel rejected and or humiliated, which is the general idea, in order to obtain source of supply. The emotion that may be felt is anger. This emotion is usually felt by those with the cluster B personality. Therefore, that energy is transferred to their partners during sex. Pause. Basically here, and it's pretty self-explanatory, for sources of supply, the cluster B personality during the sexual encounter, they like to humiliate their partners. Okay, again, for sources of supply. Usually, one of the emotions that the cluster B personality feels is anger. So, due to energy transference, which is involuntary, in other words, we cannot help but to experience energy transference. So, due to energy transference, the emotion that is transferred to the cluster B personality's sexual partner is anger. Any emotion you may be feeling during the sexual encounter is transferred to the cluster B personality. Again, key phrase is energy transference, which is involuntary. Usually it is unconsciously done or unintentional. Just like breathing. We don't really think about it when we breathe, but we do it. Okay? So the same goes for energy transference. Next point. The emotions that narcissists, cluster B personality, usually feel are anger, hatred, fear, and jealousy. They are not able to feel or experience joy, gratitude, love, or pleasure. Therefore, operate and function from a low vibrational frequency on a regular basis. Okay, so these are the emotions that cluster B personality usually feel, which is anger, hatred, fear, and jealousy. I'm continuing now. Those who operate from a higher vibrational frequency usually have more capacity to feel emotions such as love, gratitude, joy, and pleasure. Pause again. So during the energy transference and sexual encounter, if you are the partner of the cluster B personality and you usually on a regular basis feel emotions such as love, gratitude, joy, and pleasure, guess what? During the love making or energy transference or sexual encounter, you will transfer those emotions to the cluster B personality. And in turn, the cluster B personality, they will transfer their emotions to you, such as anger, hatred, fear, and jealousy. This is why a lot of the times, a lot of us who have a cluster B personality as a sexual partner, this is why we usually feel these emotions. Sometimes we don't even understand where they're coming from. We feel hatred, anger. I know hatred is a strong word, but we feel anger, hatred, fear, and jealousy. Jealousy most of the time, and anger. Okay, this is what we feel, and anxiety. So instead of saying fear, you can say anxiety. You fear that he or she is going to leave the relationship and find someone else. Think about it. Okay? So this is why a lot of the times, those of us who have a cluster B personality as a sexual partner, this is why we feel those particular emotions a lot. Sometimes seemingly coming out of nowhere. Okay? All right, next point. Emotions are energy in motion. Let me repeat that. Emotions are energy in motion. During sex, the emotions that each partner carries within his or her within his or herself is what is energetically transferred to their partners. Most of the time, this is unintentional by individuals, except some narcissists, not all of them, just some. As human beings, we cannot help but to engage in sexual intercourse and experience sexual energy transference. Okay, this is involuntary. Cannot help it. It will happen because it's natural. Because it is a natural occurrence. See? Okay? This transference will happen whether we are conscious to it or not. It is possible that due to narcissists' predatory senses heightening during the sex act, intuitively they are aware of this sexual energy transference. Pause. So some narcissists and cluster B personality, they know about this sexual energy transference stuff. That's why some of them intentionally engage in sex magic. I know some of you have heard of sex magic. Okay, so some cluster B personalities, they know about this energy transference and they use it on purpose. Okay, they know about it. So during the sex act, they do use it on purpose. And again, intuitively, some cluster B personalities, they know about that sexual energy transference and how it works. For those of us who are partners of the cluster B personality, a lot of us do not know about the sexual energy transfers, or we're not conscious to it. We don't really think about it and how it works and how we can use it to our advantage, because a lot of us, we seek to please our partners, not just to be pleasured by our partners, but to please. Not so with the cluster B personality. They seek to gain source supply, even during the sex act. Next point. Those with a cluster B personality are often operating from a place of fear rather than love. Fear in and of itself can be referred to as a psychic vampire. Those who also operate from fear desire to be loved, but feel unworthy of it. Let me repeat that. Those who also operate from fear desire to be loved, but feel unworthy of it. Therefore, this is not just the cluster B personalities that do this. A person can desire to be loved, but fear it at the same time because they feel unworthy of it. These individuals are vibrational matches for narcissists. This is why I mentioned this, because the cluster B personality, they are seeking to gain sources of supply, and a lot of their sexual partners, they desire to be loved, but they feel unworthy of it. So they are perfect vibrational matches. Keyword, vibrational matches for the narcissist or cluster B personality. Continuing. Unfortunately, some cluster B personalities repeatedly enforce fear in dysfunctional relationships. Anxiety, anger, and depression are dominating emotional states, which seem to be consistent in unhealthy, toxic relationships with narcissists, which is not by accident. Pause. So a lot of the times, the cluster B personality is intentionally trying to invoke or influence certain emotional states or certain conscious states from their sexual partners. Certain emotions such as sadness, anger, okay, anxiety, fear, okay, conscious states such as depression. Depression is a state, okay? Sadness precedes the state of depression. Feeling sadness precedes the state of depression. Feeling sadness for a long period of time results in a state of depression. Long periods of fear results in a state of anxiety. Hope that makes sense. So the cluster B personality, they seek to influence this in their sexual partners, and they don't do it by accident. It is planned.
Earth, our home, incubator of life, through our lines of life.
Some individuals who have a cluster B personality, such as narcissists, have possibly chosen to not love out of spite and as a defense mechanism rather than a survival mechanism. Pause. So some cluster B personalities / narcissists, they choose not to love other people and they do it out of spite. Okay, I'm going to continue for the sake of time. As they function from a place of fear rather than love, the emotions that they feel are jealousy, hatred, and anger. This low energy does not encourage a person to become intimate with others in any type of relationship. What is usually found is that these individuals use sex as a weapon, which is means for sources of supply. Sex to narcissists is not designed to express love and pleasure, nor is it an expression of celebrating a union between people who love and care for one another. Narcissists, male and female, are usually very sexually perverted. Therefore, sex is not sacred or divine. Next point. To those is taught as to be divine and sacred and choose to pervert them out of spite is a source of supply to the cluster B personality. So pause. In other words, the things that a lot of us find divine and sacred, narcissists, purely out of spite, will pervert. Basically what you have here is that the things that we find sacred and divine, the cluster B personality, they will pervert these things simply out of spite and as a source of supply. So all the things that you and I find sacred, the narcissist gets a perverted pleasure out of spitefully perverting that for source supply. Children, virgins, and animals are generally taught in some cultures and religions that they are initially to be considered as divine and sacred. Pause. So there are some cultures, there are some religions on the planet. Okay, there are some cultures on the planet that do teach and do see children as sacred, virgins as sacred, animals as sacred and divine. Narcissists, cluster B personality, engage in sex out of rage and anger, therefore prefer to engage in perverted sexual acts such as pornography, bestiality, pedophilia, sodomy, self-mutilation, human trafficking, masochism, and sadism, just to name a few. With each sexual encounter, sexual energy transference is taking place between every individual and animal involved. Pause. The reason why I included animal here is because during sexual intercourse, during a sexual encounter, energy transference will take place. See, none of us who are alive can escape that. An animal is alive. So those who practice bestiality, that is having sex with animals, energy transference will take place. Okay? We cannot get away from that. Energy transference is involuntary. It will take place. Okay, next slide. All right. It is very common that cluster B personality methodically choose those who behave codependently with a history of childhood trauma for romantic partners. This is well planned by the cluster B personality. For sources of supply, most narcissists like to reinforce memories of childhood trauma in their romantic partners while denying their own. Pause. So basically, for sources of supply, one of the things that narcissists and cluster B personalities like to do is they like to reinforce memories of trauma, childhood trauma, in their romantic partners. At the same time, their trauma, their past pain, right? Or painful memories from their childhood, they deny it. So the cluster B personality, at the same time, they're denying their own pain. They like to reinforce it in their partners for source supply. Okay? The cluster B personality and codependent will often reenact their childhood trauma during their relationships. During sexual intercourse, it is possible that certain childhood traumatic experiences could be triggered. More than likely, this will be the partner who behaves codependently, due to the fact that the cluster B personality has decided to detach from their higher state of consciousness, the true self. What is interesting is that during the sexual act, the cluster B personality is more than likely reenacting childhood trauma, whereas they have possibly been sexually molested as a child. Promiscuity is another common result of children who have been sexually molested. Some children grow up and develop what is known as asexuality instead of becoming promiscuous. Okay, pause. I'm just going to go ahead and start with that last sentence here and just zero in on asexuality. These are individuals who do not engage in sexual activity at all, and it could be for several reasons. Some of the most common reasons is because they do not have a lot of interest in having sex. Okay, so that's asexuality. Promiscuity, of course, we know these are individuals who have sex with a lot of people, okay, and see no problem with it. Asexuality is on the other side of the coin. They hardly have sex with anyone, okay, or no sex at all. They don't even masturbate. Promiscuity is another result of children who have been sexually molested. Now, this has been studied and found to be true. Promiscuity is one of the results. It's very common, actually, for children who have been sexually molested. So when it comes to the cluster B personality, they are reenacting their childhood trauma. The reason why I mentioned promiscuity and asexuality is because when it comes to the cluster B personality, if he or she has been, for instance, sexually molested when they were children, okay, it is early as their adolescence that it is found that they usually will practice asexuality or promiscuity. Okay, that's why I mentioned that. So the cluster B personality, some of their background is that they were sexually molested, but they detach and they deny this. While at the same time, when it comes to their romantic partners, they like to reinforce the childhood trauma in their partners. The same childhood trauma that he or she may have suffered themselves, but they deny. Next slide. Triggers can be set by being in a certain place, a scent or odor or smells, seeing a person who reminds you of the traumatic event, and abusive behaving persons who caused your trauma. So these can cause triggering. Right here, a scent, an odor, a smell, seeing a person who reminds you of the person. They may look like the person who have caused you trauma. They may be the person who caused you trauma or have been abusive to you in the past. These can cause triggers. Okay, triggers are personal and set off memories which usually are responded with an emotional intensity as if the traumatic event is happening again. Triggers can be activated by all 5 senses. Sound and sight are usually what brings about the trigger initially, and then smell, taste, and touch is what also causes triggers to occur. Okay, all of an individual's senses are engaged during sex and lovemaking. Narcissists transfer anger, jealousy, fear, and hatred energetically to their sexual partners during sex, which is why no matter how physically pleasurable, partners are left feeling one or more of those emotions quite often. Pause. So the narcissist, or the cluster B personality, the emotions that they usually feel are anger, jealousy, fear, and hatred. So energetically, or this is what's transferred to their partners during the sex act. So no matter how pleasurable the sex act is, or no matter how good the cluster B personality is in bed, their partners are usually left feeling emotions such as jealousy, anger, fear. Because a lot of us can think about when we had sexual relationships with a cluster B personality. Why was it that no matter how good he or she was in bed, we felt angry a lot? We felt jealousy and even fearful. We feared that he or she may be with someone else, or may find someone else, or may leave the relationship. Think about it. And we were usually jealous, even if they looked at someone else, even if they flirted with someone else, even if they just talked or spoke of the opposite sex or someone else that we may fear that they were actually attracted to or may be having sex with behind our backs. A lot of the times we were frustrated and angry with our cluster B personality partners. This has a lot to do with the energy transference. So during the sex act with the cluster B personality, these are the emotions that are usually transferred to us, and we usually feel for the duration of the romantic relationship, no matter how good they are in bed. Okay, please beware that trauma bonding and soul ties are possible gateways for demonic influences to enter into a person's life due to sexual energy transference with the cluster B personality or narcissist. However, all of this can be turned around by clearing the energy from such interactions. Be advised that this clearing is not to be taken lightly. It is a process which results in your transitioning, changing, and the continuation of growth. Pause. So basically, and I want to go ahead and start by saying that I have done a few videos on releasing energy, or you want to call it negative energy. I've done a couple of videos about that. Please check those out. The energy transference that takes place with the cluster B personality, it's not all gloom and doom. In other words, you're not stuck with it. So after the relationship is over with the cluster B personality, one of the things that a lot of us forget to do is to clear the low energy cycle. We forget to clear it, and we move on to the next relationship and wonder why is it that we still think about our exes, who is the cluster B personality. Why is it that they seem to still be in our lives? Why can't we rid them already? Get rid of them, right? Why can't we do that? Well, because we did not clear the low energy cycle, or we did not break the low energy cycle. A lot of us do this, even if we don't have a cluster B personality as an ex. A lot of us move on to the next romantic relationship, and we haven't taken care of business by clearing the energy that had been accumulated during our romantic relationship with the cluster B personality. So again, be advised that this clearing is not to be taken lightly. And I want to say, because when we clear the energy, it's going to take time. Next slide. Okay, tools. By becoming mindful of your male and female energies will balance those energies within. Being grateful for those energies could possibly help to break low energy cycle from all cluster B personalities you've had unhealthy relationships with. As you create your blueprint for your strong support base, you will successfully be able to begin working it at your own pace. Health and healing can begin to manifest in your life. Sincerity is very important in order to make this happen. Pause. This first tool here, one of the things that helped me out in the past was that I became mindful of my male and female energy. Every human has a male and a female energy within. Once a person starts balancing that, that can be one excellent way to break the low energy cycle from the cluster B personality. that you've had a romantic involvement with. A lot of people miss this, but I'm telling you, I did have one cluster B personality as a romantic partner. This was years ago. And one of the things that helped me out and was a game changer was when I realized that I had female and male energy, and I balanced it. In other words, I was mindful of both my male and female energy. I took my time and I invested in myself to break the low energy cycle from that cluster B personality partner I had. So I'm telling you, it's a game changer. When a person takes the time out to break the low energy cycle from their previous relationship, romantic involvement with cluster B personality, because when a person doesn't do that, they don't get rid of the energy residue that they accumulated. Like I stated before, they don't get rid of it, so it lingers. Clarity of where you are emotionally and spiritually in life is important, especially if contemplating on disconnecting from unhealthy relationships. Becoming clear and obtaining clarity will often cause pain and heartache, which is unavoidable. Okay, facing ourselves is part of the shadow work necessary in order to work past the clarity of how we are addicted to unhealthy relationships. Pause. Some people are addicted to unhealthy relationships. Let's not make any mistake about it. Some people are absolutely addicted to unhealthy relationships. This is one of the main reasons why some people end up involved with cluster B personality romantically and cannot seem to get over him or her once the romantic relationship has come to a close or once it is over. Okay? So addicted to unhealthy relationships is very important to remember that. All right. It is challenging to most people to admit that they have made mistakes and have certain weaknesses, whereas it pertains to relationships. Once there is clarity and acknowledgement of our part, this is vital in order to continue to successfully thrive forward past unhealthy relationships. Pause. So basically, what comes with clarity is sometimes more pain. It's called growing pains. Because when we start realizing certain things about ourselves, it can be quite ugly. I started doing the shadow work. I started looking at myself. I started looking at how I did relationships, romantic involvements. Okay, who did I usually pick and choose to be with and why? What were the patterns? What was the pathology? And when I started looking closely at myself, in other words, doing the shadow work, one of my main questions to myself was I ready to make a change? Was I ready to deal with myself and say, okay, I made mistakes, so it's time to change that? Or was I still blaming people? Next slide. Detachment from what and who influences spiritual damage can become even more challenging when one does not practice emotional discipline. It is very common to have moments of clarity that will change one to detach from people, places, and things that are very damaging and unhealthy. Ego can cause some to continue to go from one unhealthy relationship to the other until they decide to detach. Next tool. In order to reconstruct or change the internal condition, some people choose to take full responsibility for the choices that they make regardless of life experiences. We are not our experiences. Once we answer the question of what the purpose of our relationships are, we find that we do not need to re-experience those painful relationships again. We learn some very valuable lessons and continue to thrive forward in our life. An aspect of emotional discipline is to become mindful of what is thought and what is felt. This helps to reconstruct the internal condition. The mind and the body are not always in alignment with the spirit. This takes some practice and self-discipline to accomplish. Next slide. Next tool. Become more knowledgeable about energy bodies, quantum fields, clearing toxic energy, and breaking low energy cycles. Okay, continuing. taking detox spa baths, yoga, incorporating a healthy lifestyle, becoming more mindful, and building a strong support base for yourself can all help to clear toxic energy obtained during an unhealthy relationship with people who have cluster B personality. Okay, or with a person who has a cluster B personality. Next tool, having clarity of what your intentions are before, during, and after sexual encounters. This will make clear what you wish to manifest in your life as it pertains to your romantic relationships. Examples are finances, career, health, and relationships. Energy does not discriminate. Therefore, it does not malfunction if a person who may be seen as bad uses it as a particular purpose, or for a particular purpose. Pause. So basically, when we state our intentions of how we want to use energy, so even during sex, that's energy transference. You make your intentions clear before you make love, before you have sex with your partner, it can manifest in your life. For instance, the intention for both of us, we have made it clear that our intention is to strengthen our marriage by making love and having sex. By making love and having sex, we want to have a family. We both are on the same page and we have made our intentions clear. So when we make love, when we come together and unite, voila, what can manifest is our family, our children. What can manifest is a stronger marriage between us. What can manifest is that maybe we go into business together. We become millionaires, billionaires. I think you all get the picture. So before, during, and after sex with your sexual partner, one of the best ways to break a low energy cycle and to manifest something great in your life or in your lives as partners is to make your intentions clear. I hope that makes sense. When it comes to the cluster B personality, if they are knowledgeable about what I just stated, they can make their intentions clear, such as destroying their partner. I know that sounds terrible. Making him or her brokenhearted, making him or her crazy for him or her. Cluster B personality, they usually like to do this. They are clear of what their intentions are. So when they have sex with their partners, this is why it usually manifests. The universe doesn't say, oh no, we can't do that because this is a cluster B personality. The universe doesn't care. It doesn't discriminate. Energy does not discriminate. So whoever knows how to manipulate energy, they will get things to manifest in his or her life. Give yourself permission to grieve. It is not your fault if you were groomed during your childhood to become an adult who behaves codependently. You cannot save or rescue anyone, including the narcissist. Take care to become patient with yourself. Know what and who matters currently in your life. You deserve a great life. Reclaim it. So all of those are the tools, okay, references and resources. Please go to the description box below and check this out. Okay, check this out in the description box below. All right, and having said all that, I want to go ahead and thank all of you for watching. I'm Luminousz Star. Stay tuned for more videos. Take care now.
Earth, our home, incubator of life. Through our lines of life.